Hey, good morning. If you're looking for NCAA tournament talk, you're not going to find it here. This is all baseball today on our podcast. We got Bubba Carpenter in studio, Mike Rooney from ESPN and D1Baseball going to join us a little bit later. We're talking this Razorback baseball sweep over Vanderbilt in Nashville over the weekend. Arkansas outscored the Commodores 22-7 in 3 games, won the games 9-0 in game 1, 6-4 in 10 innings in game 2, and then finished the sweep yesterday with a really impressive win, 7-3, coming back from a 3-2 deficit with a 5-run 8th inning, just like we've seen from the Razorbacks all season, this big inning being the key and a turning point in these games. Arkansas, the first team to sweep Vanderbilt on its home field since 2022, and we'll jump into the numbers here in just a few minutes on that. Vanderbilt, not a team that gets swept very often at Hawkins Field. Bubba, as you watched it this weekend, what were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you look at that number right there, outscored 22-7. I mean, it's pretty impressive at Vandy. I remember we talked last week, and we were talking about the Tuesday loss, and we said, if we can go into Vandy and win the series, no one's going to remember that Tuesday loss. And I think the sweep
feels like a distant memory, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like, what Tuesday game did that ever happen? But it just goes to show how Dave approaches things and how it really pays off. You got to lose one to win one sometimes, and then you win the ones that are important.
Maybe lose one to win two.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the fact that we were able to get Jimenez out on Saturday and save him, brought Dylan in. I thought that was huge right there, saving him.
Dave Van Horn spoke after the game yesterday, and we'll apologize in advance. There's a little bit of background noise on this. He was actually doing this interview from the locker room. Usually after a game, like on Friday and Saturday, he'll do the interviews. They'll go back to the hotel, and they'll do a Zoom from the hotel. On Sunday, it's getaway day. They got a plane to catch, and so it's a little bit different, and this was Dave Van Horn, though, in Nashville yesterday after that 7-3 win over Vanderbilt, talking about the significance of sweeping the Commodores.
Yeah, I mean, I don't say I savor it. I just appreciate the effort from the players, and it was a really good win. Sweeps are hard to get. It doesn't matter if you're playing the best team in the league or the team with the worst record. And you look at some of the teams that have bad records in our league, they're really talented, and they're going through a rough time. So I don't get too high or low. I just enjoy it for a few hours, and then I'll move on to the next game, honestly.
I bet it was a happy flight home yesterday.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, I think I misspoke. Jimenez talking about getting him out of the game on
Friday, and he was able
for
Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah, so I think I got that wrong.
We knew what you were saying.
I appreciate it. It's still early, but you're right. I bet it was a great flight home to go in there and sweep those guys, and I mean do it in the fashion that we did. I mean, you look at some of the huge plays defensively, key plays, key swings at crucial times, and that big inning that we keep talking about, that one big inning. And this team, boy, they can jump on you fast. I mean, they can put a 5 spot up in a hurry.
All right, so here's the numbers on Vanderbilt being swept at home. I mentioned it's first time that it's happened since 2022. That year, both Tennessee and LSU swept Vanderbilt at Hawkins Field. Kind of ironically, LSU did it, and then Vanderbilt came to Fayetteville and beat the Razorbacks, I think, the next week, and they turned it around pretty quickly. But before 22, the last time Vanderbilt had been swept at home was 2009. It's only happened 6 times under Tim Corbin, their 23rd-year head coach, Arkansas being the 6th this weekend. And that ballpark opened in 2002, the year before Corbin got there. They've only been swept 8 times by an SEC team in 24 years at that ballpark.
It's pretty impressive. And, one thing that stood out for me was all the fans we had there. You see all the red?
Yes.
And I really think that has an effect. I really think it does.
A few weeks ago, I think there's 2 things at play here. Number one, it's spring break in Arkansas, and I think a lot of people went over there. It's like, hey, let's go follow the baseball team in a fun town like Nashville. A few weeks ago, though, Arkansas played Vanderbilt at Memorial Coliseum, and it was like mostly red, it felt like, in the basketball arena too. There's such a huge Razorback following in that central Tennessee area, and it's like whenever they come over there and play Vanderbilt, they're going to be there. And Vanderbilt's just one of those unique places. I've always felt like whenever you go there and watch a football game, and I know Vanderbilt football is different from the other sports, but it's like it's always a road game for Vanderbilt, or like a bowl game at best, because it's like a 50-50 split in that stadium. Nashville's just one of those towns where, for a lot of programs, it's kind of centrally, conveniently located. Then obviously it's like any other city. You got a lot of people who come from a lot of different backgrounds who kind of gravitate there, and I think you see that when Arkansas comes to town.
Yeah, I think so. And I think having that many fans there kind of drowned it out the Whistler. You didn't hear the Whistler as much. Of course,
Heard
you
him a
didn't
couple times.
Yeah, but I think that's always nice when you drowned him out.
I mean, it's not a real big ballpark either, about 3,700 seats, and so you definitely notice when there's a big contingent of road fans. I think they were taking up about 3 full sections down that first base line, and we'll leave it at that. Van Horn, road sweeps for him have been fairly rare in the SEC. I looked this up last night. Just the 12th time that Dave has had a team that swept an SEC team on the road. It's happened 3 times at Mississippi State, and the last time was 2023 at Mississippi State. That had been previously the last road sweep for the Razorbacks. They've done it twice at Tennessee, and then they've done it once at Kentucky, once at LSU. Those were 20-plus years ago. Did it once at Auburn, did it once at South Carolina, once at Missouri, and once against Alabama at the Hoover Met the year that Alabama was renovating its ballpark. Now you add Vanderbilt to that list, but 12 times in 23 years. I mean, I think this kind of goes to show that sweeping a team on the road, especially a quality SEC team, is very, very rare.
It is, and it's hard to sweep a team at home, much less on the road. And, SEC, the life on the road in the SEC is so tough. And I just think it just says a lot about this team. It really does. And, I mean, the more you watch these guys play, I mean, and starting pitching was good this weekend. Mm-hmm. It was really good. I mean, Zach Root Friday night was awesome. I thought Gackle looked great and made good pitches. But I think it kind of started with the starting pitching, keeping us in those games.
All right, let's talk about yesterday's game first. We'll go game by game here. Razorbacks win this one 7-3. I thought offensively it was probably Arkansas's. It's hard to say it was their worst game because they end up scoring 7 runs. They have that big inning. But maybe, Bubba, for the first 7 innings, I thought it was their worst offensive game that they'd played over there all weekend. Connor Fennell, that sophomore right-hander for Vanderbilt, really shut them down for 5 innings. The first reliever they had come in, Kranzler, he ended up pitching okay for a couple of innings, and then Arkansas just got to him.
I think Fennell was tough. I had a tournament yesterday, so I was gone all day. Went home and watched it last night when I got home, and he's tough. He's not overpowering, but he changes speed. He's got a lot of movement on his ball. I think he was trying to frustrate the Razorback hitters. Kind of that quick windup that he does. I don't know, a little bit bush league, but it is what it is.
I wanted to ask you what you thought about that because it was like he get the ball in his glove and he's ready to go at 18 seconds on the pitch clock, and then I think it affected Arkansas in the first inning. They weren't ready necessarily for that type of pace, and you saw in the second inning when they came back, like Ryder Helfrich stands up there, and the rule is that you have to be alert to the pitcher with 8 seconds to go on the pitch clock. And so Helfrich stood there with his head turned, looking at the pitch clock till about 9-10 seconds, and then he would turn and look at Fennell. And it looked like it was a deliberate move just to try to slow him down some.
Yeah. No, that's smart. And it makes it kind of, everyone thought the pitch clock was going to be an advantage to the hitters, but you've seen guys in the major leagues milk that clock. They'll stand there and hold the ball until the pitch clock's down to 0, and then they'll throw it. Other guys will go really quick like Fennell did. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, if a guy's working fast like that, you just step out. And if you don't like it, you step out again. You can't do that anymore. So the pitch clock is actually an advantage to the pitcher. And but what Ryder did, I think, was good. But it's a little harder for a guy to break a pitcher's rhythm now with the rules behind the pitch clock.
I mean, if Connor Fennell pitched a complete game, Vanderbilt games would be over in about an hour 10.
Yeah, they would.
I mean, that guy was. Yeah. It was amazing how fast he worked.
But guys get in the box and they have you get in the box. You have a routine. You get there. You get set. You do your thing right before the pitch. And when he's doing that, you don't have time. It kind of messes up your rhythm.
I don't know if you noticed this. Vanderbilt's hitters started doing that later in the game. They would look at the pitch clock and then they would turn. It was almost like retaliation.
Right.
A little bit.
Worked out well for them.
You know, Vanderbilt has always been a team that you have to beat. And what I mean by that is they don't make a lot of mistakes and beat themselves. They came into this where, pitching-wise, they're one of the best pitching teams in the country. Defensively, one of the best fielding teams in the country. And they've always been a really aggressive team on the bases, but it's always been really smart. Like they know when to steal. They're real smart about what they do. They had two big base running mistakes in that game yesterday that were very non-Vanderbilt. I felt like the first one was an interference where their catcher just kind of puts his hands on the back of Nolan Souza as he's charging a bunt down the first baseline. And then the second one I thought was really the more egregious of the two, where Vastine, their most experienced player, hits a double, and he never looks at Corbin at third base. He's the third base coach too, and he's put the stop sign on for that guy that was going, from first base, and then all of a sudden that's an easy out, and it totally changed that sixth inning. Instead of 2 on in scoring position with 1 out, now it's a runner at third with 2 outs.
Changes everything right there. A huge mistake by them, and it's good for us, but you don't see teams make that mistake. You don't see Vandy teams make those mistakes. They're always really good on the bases, like you said. But then they also made a couple blunders in the infield. You look at the safety squeeze. First baseman comes in and bobbles that. I don't know. There's just I thought we outplayed them all the way across the board. We made a mistake or two, but we made up for it. You look at Justin Thomas's ball. He made a mistake in center field, came back and hit a bomb to make up for it. So. Yeah,
both of those base running mistakes, by the way, they ended up being the second out of an inning, and Vanderbilt didn't score in either of those innings. Dave Van Horn was asked after the game yesterday about those mistakes and how pivotal they were to the game's outcome, and this is what he had to say about it.
The first one, the left-handed hitter brought a drag bump with him, with the left-handed pitcher got it by. Souza was aware of the play. He could do it. It's on scattering report we talked about. He was crashing hard. If he doesn't run into the runner, he's going to have to field it to make a good throw. It's still going to be really close. But yeah, the other play, you got a ball that's hit. The runner at first is, goes around second, goes around third. I don't know exactly what happened. All I know is the batter runner had his head down when he went around second. So I don't know if the third base coach was bringing the runner at third, and then as the last second threw up, the stop sign, and by then the batter runner had put his head down and didn't look. We call it look, touch, look. You look before you hit the bag, you touch the bag, and you look again just to see if there's been a change, and there was a change. So, how much did it affect the game? I think it affected the game a lot. I think that play affected the game. It probably for sure cost them 1 run. The play earlier in the game, it could have cost no runs, but it also could have cost a big inning because, now they're going to have a 9-hole and they're going to be back to the top, and you never know. All those things add up in a ball game, and that's why we always tell our guys everything matters. So you got to pay attention and it wasn't us this time.
And it's not just runs; it's momentum. There's a certain amount of momentum. It's not lost on me the fact that during the game yesterday, after that. After the sixth inning incident where Vastine ended up going to third and got tagged going back to second, at that point in the game, Arkansas's hitters had gone down 10 in a row against Vanderbilt pitching. And then what happens the first pitch of the next half inning? It's a base hit by Brent Iredell to right field. And Arkansas didn't end up scoring in that 7th inning, but it was like momentum turned with that mistake that Vanderbilt made.
Well, and if you want to go back to that play, Helfrich had to come up the line, block the ball, then make the throw to second. So credit him. Souza's throw was a little offline coming in. So there were a lot of things that went right for us on that play. But, yeah, you're right. The momentum shifted after that, and then it's like we were a different team offensively.
I felt like watching Vanderbilt yesterday, and, the only time that they led during the entire series was when they hit that 3-run home run yesterday, and then they led for a few innings after that. It felt like they were really pressing offensively, and I almost feel like when you do that, you try to do just a little bit too much, and you think about, well, maybe you swing at pitches, but it's things like that, base running mistakes that I think probably go into that too. You heard Van Horn talk about, we say look, touch, look. And I know Vanderbilt practices that,
Right.
but those kind of fundamental type deals, I think, probably go out of your head when you're thinking about, hey, I got to make a play and try to help us win this game.
Yeah, I think so, man. I think, and you look at the 3-run homer. I went back and watched that. I mean, that was a really good pitch, the Beidle cheese. I think the guy was just cheating a little bit. I think he just thought, okay, it's coming in. I'm gonna cheat and get the barrel out there, and he did it. But you're right. Teams try to do too much. When things aren't going well, you see guys try to do a little too much. They get out of their routine. They make mistakes that he normally wouldn't make. And I mean, that's a credit to Arkansas constantly putting pressure on them. Razorback pitchers, I thought pretty much dominated. You can tell how good a guy's stuff is by the reaction of the hitter. Mm-hmm. And there were some swords.
Yeah,
sure.
There definitely were. I want to talk to you about Bybee because I thought that was probably, and I feel like a broken record because I think I've said in like 3 straight weeks that was the best Ben Bybee's looked as a Razorback.
Yeah.
Yesterday was the best Ben Bybee has looked as a Razorback. It was the longest that he's gone in an SEC game, went 4 innings, most strikeouts he's ever had in any game with 7. And again, that 6th inning play, you wonder if his outing goes any different if Vanderbilt's got 2 on with 1 out in scoring position. I felt like that really helped him maybe settle himself.
Yeah.
And then past the 6th inning, they barely did anything against him.
Well, and I think that play was huge for Bybee right there. Completely different situation. It's different if you got runners 2nd and 3rd, 1 out. But his stuff, it looked like he just kind of dominated with his fastball, and he mixed in a changeup, a couple breaking balls. But I don't know that they really had an answer for his fastball. It's just like he was just up there throwing it by him.
Did you have Ben Bybee being like Arkansas is one of their most reliable SEC bullpen guys at the beginning of this season? Because, I mean, he didn't pitch that great in the midweek at the start of the year, and now all of a sudden, this is 7 innings in SEC play, and he hasn't allowed a run.
No, and I hope Ben's not watching this because I love Ben, but no, I did not.
I think he would say the same thing, though.
Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden his stuff's different. His fastball's got a little bit more jump. Breaking ball, a little more bite. Change-ups, nasty. I've always said he had a really good change-up. For a big guy like that, usually your big guys have a hard time hiding their change-up. You can usually see it. When they go to throw a change-up, it's very deliberate. You can see it out of their hand. But Bybee does a great job hiding that change-up. It's a really good weapon against the lefties.
I think he's pitching really well. Meant to ask you this on Thursday. I told him that I would ask this. This was from a Twitter user named Too Tall Charlie. He said, "Are we peaking too early? Please address this on the podcast." And when I see Ben Bybee, it's like, no, there's no way they're peaking too early. I see a lot of players on this team who I don't think they peaked at all. I think I see steady improvement from them from week to week. And I think in like the case of Bybee, maybe having that hiccup that he had at the start of the season has maybe refocused him and made it to where he's going to pitch better when they need him at the end.
I think so. And look at the confidence. If you watch Bybee's mound presence now compared to early in the season, it's totally different. He's confident. Baseball's a mental game, Matt. And I don't care if you're hitting, fielding, pitching, whatever. And he gets on the mound right now, and he's a dude. And he looks like he's going to dominate you. But as far as peaking, I don't think we're close to peaking. I think we've got a chance to be way better than we are right now, and we're good right now. But the lineup hasn't – I mean, the whole lineup hasn't hit in one game yet. I mean, there's been a couple games. But, you've got certain guys that have carried you certain games. Mm-hmm. The bottom of the lineup's been really good. Middle of the lineup, wasn't great this weekend. Bottom of the lineup was huge. Davelin's been great at the top all along. And I love having a true leadoff guy. For me, that's a game changer. You get a guy at the top of the lineup getting on. I can't remember how long it's been since we've had a true leadoff guy here at Arkansas. And, boy, Davelin's fun to watch.
Mike Rooney, who we're going to have on the podcast here in a few minutes. He had a great soundbite, I guess, if you will, on the broadcast yesterday on SEC Network. He said, I think there's a lot of teams that are probably asking, hey, where's the Charles Davelin store? I'd like to go get a dozen Davelins for my team.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at him, it's not just the fact he'll hit the ball all over the field, but if you get behind an account or if you hang something like they did, I mean, it was a 2-2 breaking ball. He hit the right for a home run yesterday. I mean, he can hurt you. Or if you get behind and you have to throw him a fastball, I mean, he's got a lot. He's got power. I mean, he's got 9 home runs right now.
I feel like everybody's got 9 home runs right now,
Yeah,
9 or 10 or 11 or something like that.
But I just like the fact that, he can play small ball if you need to, but if you make a mistake, he can get big with you.
I asked Dave after the game yesterday, I said, is the depth of your lineup improved over the last few weeks? And he said, certainly. He said, I just feel like it's that time of the year. Guys are starting to heat up, seeing a lot of pitches, seeing a lot of sliders, off-speed stuff. He said you just get a little more comfortable, see it and react to it, the longer you go into the season. Game 2, they won 6-4 in 10 innings. And I texted you after the game Saturday night, and what I said, Arkansas beat Vandy at its own game.
Yeah.
Those 2 safety squeezes in the 10th inning, that's what you have seen from Vanderbilt for years and years and years. And quite frankly, you haven't seen it from Arkansas in a long time. And, I mean, I'm sitting there watching. I love small ball. When you see small ball played well and executed well, especially in big moments like that, I mean, to me, that's as fun as watching a 2-out grand slam.
Oh, I love it. And so I'm sitting there watching the game, and I knew what we were going to do. I mean, I think Corbin knew. I think everyone in the ballpark knew we were getting ready to safety squeeze right there. But if the hitter does his job and the runner at third base gets the jump, reads down angle, first of all, you got to anticipate the bump being down. There's a lot of things that have to go right, but safety squeeze is one of my favorite. As a coach, love it. Absolutely love it. I don't play a ton of small ball. I don't bunt a whole lot. I don't take a whole lot.
This does not surprise me.
Yeah, but I'll safety squeeze all the time. There's certain situations, and it was coming, perfect bunt by Kozel, and then Helfrich comes up, gets an 0-1 count, and perfect safety squeeze bunt. First baseman's charging. Ardell got a late jump. I don't know if he fell down or what happened, but he wasn't even in the camera shot, and I thought for sure it was going to be out at the plate. But we put pressure on the first baseman. He came in and bobbled it, and there it is.
I noticed this about Iredale yesterday. He scored on a wild pitch. He was ready to go on that one. I don't know if the play the day before had any influence. And I know it's different plays, but it just was interesting that he wasn't ready to go on the safety squeeze, and then yesterday on the wild pitch he was ready to charge in there.
One more thing on that. It was kind of a high pitch, I think, that Helfrich bunted. I thought he did a good job. It looked like it was kind of up and in. I didn't go back and watch the replay, but that might have been it. He might have seen the ball up and not gotten as good a jump.
Is it harder to bunt on a turf field because the ball bounces more?
Yeah, but no, it's hard to deaden it. The thing at Baum Walker, you've got that lip of the grass, so you can lay down a perfect bunt. If it hits the lip of the grass wrong, it goes foul. Where the turf, you don't have that, but it's hard to deaden one, especially when you got, like for Helfrich, he's got that first baseman crashing. He's got a fastball up. That's a tough bunt to get down.
Did it make a difference that Arkansas already had the lead? They're up 4-3. Do you think they safety squeeze there if it's 3-3 and they're trying to get the go-ahead run home?
Yes. I think with Kozel up, you would have done it anyway, or Helfrich. I think it's just the perfect play right there.
So Arkansas won that game 6-4. Van Horn was asked yesterday about, and we've seen this a number of times, when teams get their heart broken on one day, how it affects the next day's game. And he was asked about how Saturday's game might have impacted Sunday.
Yeah, I would say that you probably got a really, really good chance of winning the next day, whatever that day is, a sweep or to try to win the series. Just because the way you won, come back and win, tie it, win in extra innings. It definitely is a downer if you're on the losing end of that. And for us, being able to sleep on that and have confidence and relax and play loose, I think it made a difference today. We took it real easy today in pregame. My thought was, let's not run the bases in batting practice. Let's not take in and out. Let's save it all for the game, and maybe we need it. And I don't know, but in the 8th inning, we just had something there. Guys were still strong and fighting, and we've done this a little bit with this team, and they respond a little bit when we change things up. And I liked what I saw today at the end of the game.
That's 2 weeks in a row where they've decided to, and maybe they did this against Ole Miss too. So maybe this is 3 weeks in a row where on Sunday, I mean, we know they did it against South Carolina, but on Sunday and 3 weeks in a row, they've come through big time toward the end of the game. They had the 4-run inning against Ole Miss where it put them ahead. They had the 7-run inning, I think, in the 7th or 8th against South Carolina that put them ahead, and then obviously yesterday, or big 8th.
I'm gonna kind of play the devil's advocate here. You want to win this series when you go on the road, or any SEC series. You want to win this series. It's really easy to get complacent on Sunday because you've won the series.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that with this team. This team's a little bit ruthless. They go out and they really want to. I mean, they don't let up any. I mean, they don't want to just win the series. They want to sweep. But I love what DVH said right there about not running the bases, not taking in and out. I played for a manager, quick story, Stump Merrill, no feel, loved the guy, managed a long time, didn't have a feel for the players. Like, we'd be on a travel day, night game, travel day up at 4 a.m., at bed in 2 a.m., we'd take BP, we'd take infield, we'd do everything before a game. We're wore out. I feel like your best coaches are the coaches that kind of coach you from the inside out. Like, Dave's got a really good feel for his players and knows when to push them and when to back off. And I think backing off yesterday was a perfect play after two pretty gritty games, hard-fought games. And, I think it showed towards the end of that game.
Aiden Jimenez gave him a big, and again, this goes toward knowing your players, and some of this is the game kind of tells you what to do, I think. But he gets throws 3 pitches, gets an out, gets him out of a jam. I think his bases loaded jam on Friday night, and then Arkansas scores 3 in the top of the next inning and get him out of there. And then he pitched really well on Saturday. He said it was the first time that he's pitched back-to-back days since he had his Tommy John surgery, which I would think for a pitcher is a pretty big milestone.
Yeah, he was awesome. I mean, he really was good. Pitched to contact, kept the ball down, cutter, slider thing that he throws, heavy fastball. He was really good. And, it's good to have him as that weapon. He's a guy that could, kind of take on any role for this team.
11 SEC innings for Jimenez, who they're calling Jimmy, by the way. I don't know if you know this.
Did not know
you
that.
Call him Jimmy on the broadcast next time. 11 SEC innings, 1 run, and that run was in the 10th, and it looked like Justin Thomas could have probably thrown home there and probably kept the base runner from advancing. But I guess in that situation, you don't want to, there's 2 outs in the 10th, you're up 3 runs, you don't want to mess up and overthrow the plate, and then all of a sudden the innings start go haywire.
Yeah, I mean, it's the right play. I mean, he could have easily thrown home. I don't think they'd have gone. I think they were probably, what I call make him make a throw. You take a couple hard steps to see where he throws the ball, see where the throw is, but he just threw it into second. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate for Jimenez, but these guys are about the team first, and you're not going to hear him complain about that, I promise you.
Dave Van Horn, after Saturday's game, told the team, and the post-game huddle said, Gabe Gackle's back, by the way. 5 2/3 innings, his longest outing, tied for his longest outing of the year in terms of innings. He also went 5 2/3 against Kansas State, but this was a much better performance than he had against K-State. Probably the best performance he's had, regardless of the opponent all year. And then, I mean, you think about the fact it's an SEC team, it's Vanderbilt on its home field, was pretty impressive. 91 pitches, the most pitches that he's thrown all year. I mean, is he back? Did this look like the Gabe Gackle of old, the one that you expected to see?
Absolutely. I thought he looked great. I thought he threw his fastball to both sides of the plate. Slider was good, kept it down, and mixed in some changeups, some really good changeups to the lefties, and threw a couple of the curveballs. So I thought he had basically all 4 pitches working. But I think the fact that he was able to throw his fastball and locate it to both sides of the plate was really important.
I felt like that was a huge outing for him, and I felt like it was an important outing for him going in because if he doesn't throw well, I don't know that he's in the weekend rotation moving forward, and this validates that he should be there.
I go back to last week's start. I still wish that if Aloy makes that play where he throws it to second, Sousa's late getting to the bag, throws it across. If he gets that out, I feel like Gackle was starting to throw better right there. I think if he gets that out, we might have seen it last week out of him. But look, it happened, and but boy, he looked great on the mound, and it's so good to have him back throwing like that. Now, Vandy's not the best hitting team out there, but I'm looking at Gackel's stuff and the way he threw, and boy, he threw great.
Yeah, Vanderbilt, they just don't have that. They don't have that J.J. Bleday, Dansby Swanson, Enrique Bradfield type that puts fear in you. I feel like offensively,
they don't, and I'm one of those that says if you're not on the fastball, you're not ready to hit. And I thought they were late on fastballs all week or all weekend, and then they cheat to the fastball and then it's susceptible to the off speed. So I thought Ryder called 3 great games, and I thought the pitchers did a good job.
Vanderbilt's OPS is in danger of dipping down below 800 right now, which is crazy to me, especially this early in the conference season, because that number is going to continue to go down most likely as they continue to play more good teams. Corbin got asked about the lack of power a couple of times this week, and he didn't want to talk about it. Was pretty grouchy after their games.
Well, and that's a great ballpark to hit in. If I was a hitter, I'd want to hit there. No foul territory. I mean, it's I don't know. It's just a fast infield. That turf's fast. It's a great place to hit.
Here's some trivia for you. This is going to tell me if you read my stories this weekend. I think I know the answer. But Zach Root, 7 2/3 innings on Friday. He piggybacked a 7-inning game against South Carolina last week. First pitcher since who to have back-to-back 7+ inning starts at Arkansas?
I always just backtrack to Hagen Smith.
No, it was never Hagen.
I guess I was wrong.
Yeah, they saved Hagen's pitch count quite a bit last year. They'd get him out a little bit early, and I think he only went past 6 innings one time. Last one was Connor Noland at the World Series in 22. He went 7 2/3, I think, against Stanford, and then 8 innings against Ole Miss.
That was going to be my second guess. You didn't give me a chance.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be.
I didn't get a chance to read your articles. I'm really sorry. I was a little busy this weekend, but yeah, I'm sure they were great. You need to send me Cliff Notes.
I will. Maybe I'm just going to send you the raw text.
Yeah,
you're going to have like these 1,000-word text messages, about 2 or 3 a day. Yeah, Zach. He looks like a true Friday night ace right now.
Yeah, he really does. And once again, 4-pitch mix. He can throw any pitch. I thought he had his curveball going really good. I mean, that thing it's the combination of the slider cutter slutter thing that he calls it, and then being able to throw the curveball in there, mix in some change-ups. But he was still throwing 94, 95 at the end of the game. I mean, before he came out. I mean, to be able to maintain that velocity, I don't know. I think he's way better than I anticipated him being, to be honest with you, Matt.
And I think that game against Ole Miss has kind of lit a fire under him a little bit the last couple of weeks too. He looks like he's really dialed in. And it wasn't lost on me that Saturday when they won the game, Root and Gackel were the first 2 out of the dugout. I mean, they were almost to first base as Kozul was touching the bag.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like there's that said something to me. I don't know exactly what it said, but it says something to me that your 2 guys that are most fired up are your top 2 pitchers.
Gotta love it, right? I mean, and that's how they pitch. They pitch with that energy and that fire. I saw Zach Root get a little fired up a couple times, and I thought it was awesome.
You saw what he mouthed to the umpire as he was walking.
Yeah, I did, and I think it was well deserved. I thought he missed some pitches. I thought he got squeezed a little bit, and yeah.
There's a word that started with an F, like maybe funky, something, forking. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Do you see? Hey, have you ever had a chance to go back and play an old team like Cam Kozul did?
No, never did.
Okay.
So that was cool what he did. It was incredible. It goes to show you how mentally tough he is, because I know they booed him a little bit his first at bat. It's tough to go back. It's got to be tough to go back into your old ballpark. You got a few people booing you, and try to stay within yourself, because human nature is to try to do too much, and then you end up going 0 for the series. But I thought he did. He's a big-time player, and big-time players step up in games like that.
He said it was what he said. He said, I compared it to visiting your ex-girlfriend. I guess that's just kind of the way I initially thought about it. I asked him after the game Friday night when he hit those 2 home runs, ended up having 5 RBI. They had posted a picture of him on social media, and he had headphones on and he's journaling up against the wall. And I'm like, is this something normal that you do? Did you hear this?
Yeah, I heard of it.
And then he said, no, he said, I listen to Gregorian chants before the game and I journal and it just kind of gets my mind right. Have you ever listened to Gregorian chants, by the way?
Yeah, I do it every week before the podcast. No, hell no, I ain't listening to Gregorian chants. Maybe I should start.
I had a philosophy professor in college who made us listen to those.
Really?
Yeah, it's because he did them, and he would make us listen to them.
Did it get you locked in?
I don't know. It got me something. I don't know about locked in. Got me maybe walk out of the class a time or two. But no, I mean, so what a weekend for him. Yeah. I mean, to go like you said, it would be easy to go back and just bomb it. Mm-hmm. But he had a huge weekend. Got a hit in every game, 8 RBI in the first 2 games. I mean, that was a big time performance, I felt like, by him. And you don't see this a whole lot because it doesn't seem like Arkansas gets a whole lot of players who end up going back and playing their old team like that.
Yeah. I just think, like I said, it says a lot about him as a player and just his, baseball's mental and his ability to control his emotions, mentally, and go out there and focus every pitch, every play. He made some good plays at first base too. I mean, he was just all around this weekend. He was just, and I think that would be tough to do. I think it'd be harder to go back to a place like Vandy, in my opinion. So I was proud of him.
All right, when we come back, Mike Rooney from D1Baseball.com and ESPN is going to join us to talk about the Razorbacks game against Vanderbilt. But first, a word from our sponsors.
At Kindle King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kindle King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kindle King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
Hey, welcome back. I want to tell you about our friends at Bentonville Glass. They've been serving their community since 1971. Committed, professional, versatile. If you're looking for a quality leader in Northwest Arkansas, looking for skilled craftsmanship, look no further than Bentonville Glass for all your glass market needs with the highest quality products. You can come by and see them now at 507 South Main in Bentonville or online at bentonvilleglass.com. Mike Rooney is with ESPN and D1Baseball.com. He was on the call yesterday when Arkansas defeated Vanderbilt in Nashville. Mike, first off, good morning. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, good morning, you guys. Great to see you. Or hear you, I should say.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, what were your thoughts watching Arkansas finish that sweep yesterday?
Yeah, boy, it was a lot to take in. I think one of the overarching themes of this season has been just what kind of a run Tennessee is on. Mm-hmm. And then when you start watching that, you start thinking, okay, like who could challenge them, right? And I do feel like Georgia and Arkansas are the 2 teams that really jump out at me as like Tennessee, Georgia, and Arkansas feel like tier 1. And, I know LSU and Texas fans wouldn't appreciate that thought, and I think they're right there. But I don't know, like Arkansas it was pretty overwhelming to see how this offense is developed, how perfectly this offense fits together. They're not all the same, those hitters, but they mesh together to, it's this dynamic force. And the pitching just continues to improve, and certainly the raw materials on the mound are outrageous. So I overall, you guys can probably tell I was super impressed. Like I thought Arkansas it was jarring how good they were.
And they're different this year, and you watch them play a lot, through the different roles that you have. What looks different to them or about them to you offensively right now?
Well, I just think it's so ironic, especially that we had Vandy, because Vandy's really suffering from a little bit of an offensive identity crisis. And, you guys know Arkansas's offense has been so heavily criticized the last few years, and I feel like the postseason upsets that Arkansas has suffered have been just 100% dumped on the offense. And, maybe that's just my perception. It certainly feels a little unfair. And I'm not like accusing someone of doing that. Like I'm probably as guilty of doing that as anyone. But I think it's interesting is Dave Van Horn all offseason was talking about our offense has got to get more dynamic and more diverse. We can't solely rely on the home runs. And now here this offense is just smashing balls out of the park, right? They can't stop hitting home runs. And so I just think the personnel has improved dramatically. Players that have returned are a year older, a year smarter, a year more skilled. And then the transfers have been home runs. And, Kojal's been awesome. Charles Davalon I heard somebody put a Lenny Dykstra comp on him, which was perfect. Their position player group is awesome.
And it's not just home runs. I mean, I know that's what basically won them the game yesterday, or at least got them, kept them in the game until they could get a couple of hits there in the eighth to help pull away. But I'm sure you saw, even though you weren't calling the game on Saturday, it was the small ball that ended up winning them that game. So I guess that shows the diversity that they do have, that potential if they need it.
Yeah, and I think also, what I love about a really good hitting team is that they will be very aggressive and look to slug early in the count. I think that's important. But with 2 strikes, they'll fight you. And that's what I see in Arkansas's lineup right now is I see a bunch of guys that, early in the count, if you make a mistake, they will punish you. But with 2 strikes, you better be ready to buckle your chin strap because they're going to fight you for they're going to fight you for the next pitch. And so, and as you pointed out, they can bunt, they can run. So, yeah, it really is a scary group. I don't know what the depth of the group is. You guys would know that better than me. It feels like it is very much the same 9 guys. Mm-hmm. And so you wonder about that. But at the same time, those 9 dudes are awesome. They give you very little margin for error as far as how do you pitch to them.
Mike, I got a question for you. Something I've been thinking a lot about when it comes to college baseball, the transfer portal, NIL. You see it in NCAA basketball tournament. You've got all your 1 seeds winning, and do you see that starting to affect college baseball? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Does it seem like the rich get richer, or are you seeing much of an effect on the college baseball side of it, like you are in other sports?
Yeah, it's a great question, Bubba. I think about this a lot. I do get concerned about it where I worry that the SEC has just run way else in baseball. We're staring down the barrel of 6 national titles in a row for the SEC, these 6 different teams. We haven't had a non-SEC team in the finals since 2019 when Michigan was in there, because obviously now Texas and Oklahoma are SEC programs. But I do, I got to remind myself about Evansville. I got to remind myself about Oral Roberts. Penn, of all teams, almost won the Auburn Regional 2 years ago. So I don't know. I do think the unlimited fall rosters concern me. I wish we would temper that a little bit, but there's so many other things happening in college sports. So I think, Bubba, I'm with you. It's something I continue to keep an eye on. But I also have to remind myself that we can't be mad at the SEC because they love college baseball too much, right? That's an awesome thing. The SEC has helped us grow the sport in such a dramatic way. So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place on that topic, as you can probably tell.
Pitching wise, Mike, what were your thoughts on what you saw yesterday?
I thought Vital Cheese was great. He's I think the funny part about Landon Vital Cheese is that it's okay, that's your Sunday starter. Holy heck, right? Lefty up to 95 with a really good slider that has improved. You could tell that Landon Vital Cheese and Matt Hobbs have really done some work on that slider. I saw him last year at Ohio State, and he was very good, but it was much more just a big lefty with a big fastball. I mean, his skill continues to improve. And again, that's game 3. And, Bybee, he comes out of the pen. You're like, okay, why is somebody's Friday starting pitching in the bullpen, right? It's he's up to 96 with 4 pitches for a strike. And, Gackle was really good this weekend. And, obviously Zach Root was awesome. I think the encouraging part about their pitching is that it's just going to continue to grow. None of those guys are Liam Doyle from Tennessee, to start the season was on this heater where you're like, man, I don't know, can he get better from here? These guys, I feel like their best pitching's ahead of them. I did hear that Parker Coyle was not available yesterday, so I'd be curious on that because he's been really valuable. But I think Arkansas's got depth for days on the mound. So, you guys can tell I watched all 3 games this weekend. I leave this weekend just feeling like I don't know what Arkansas's holes are as we sit here today. Obviously injuries change everything in college sports. So we have to monitor all those things. But as we sit here today, I mean, this Arkansas team, again, they look like I can't wait to see them trade punches. I haven't looked at the schedule yet, but I would pay a lot of money to watch them trade punches with Georgia and Tennessee. That would be captivating to me.
Well, you just led into my next question because Arkansas plays Missouri this weekend at Baum, and then they go to Georgia next week. Wes Johnson's there. This is second year as the head coach at Georgia. What have you seen from them? Like what's made this team so good? Because as I look at them, the first thing that I would think to look at is their pitching stats, and their pitching stats are just okay. It looks like offensively, that's what's really carrying this team right now.
Yeah, they're a little ironic too, right? Like we everyone ranked Arkansas super high, thinking that their pitching would be elite, and let's see if the offense can improve. And the pitching hasn't peaked yet, but the offense has been awesome. And Georgia has a little bit of the same situation. I would argue though that Georgia's pitching woes are different. Arkansas is just kind of their pitchers have seemingly run into more barrels, or that's been the surprise for me. Whereas Georgia just hasn't thrown strikes. They've hit people, they've walked people. I think they're starting to round into form. I think the thing for Georgia that's interesting is some of their transfers have been just, they've absolutely hit on those guys. Like, Rylan Zaborowski, comes from the MAC, Miami of Ohio, and turns into a Golden Spikes candidate. And, the Robbie Burnett kid from UNC Asheville has been dynamic. And, I think you guys know Georgia Foley Field plays small, and Georgia's offense makes every park look small, right? It's like when I say Foley Field plays small, I don't mean that to take away from their offense. Those kids can make a big league park look small, right? So, but the combination of the two things makes it really hard to collect 27 outs and really hard to stay away from a crooked inning. So, yeah, I mean, Georgia's offense is frightening.
You mentioned that Arkansas, Tennessee, and Georgia are Tier 1 in the SEC, which, and I'm sure there's some other teams that are out there that are national championship contenders. But I want to focus on those three, Mike, because it's not lost on me that you've got Dave Van Horn and two of his former assistant coaches. 2017, Arkansas's coaching staff was Dave Van Horn, Tony Vitello, and Wes Johnson. You think back to that, and you think, wow, that's amazing. And I know they've had other influences, but just in terms of Dave's influence on those two and how it seems to have branched out and really affected college baseball as a whole, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dave, I was coaching when Dave was kind of like coming on the scene at Nebraska. And so, he was just this, for a young coach, he was this awesome story, like self-made coach where, he had to coach at junior college and then Division II and then, lower level Division I. And then, what they did at Nebraska was, mythical, really, right? It was like, that was one of the great program building jobs of all time. And I just, I think Dave is as good as it gets in college baseball. There's a reason why him and Kevin O'Sullivan they're tied for the lead with 9 trips to Omaha among active head coaches. I think with Dave, he's just unapologetically focused on, hey, this is what a winning program looks like. This is what a winning program does. This is how winning programs act. This is how they work at their game. I think he's unapologetically focused on that and always has been. That's my perception of it. And I see that in Tony. I see that in Wes. I think I've used the word ruthless, and I try to be careful with that because I know ruthless can have a negative connotation. But I don't mean it that way. Like, I think if you're going to run a college baseball program, you do like someone running a business. You have to be ruthless in your dedication to winning principles. It doesn't mean you're running people over or hurting people on purpose, that type of thing. But you do have to hold your organization accountable for, this is what we came here to win, right? We all agreed that this is what we want. And these are the principles that we all agree win. So now we have to be ruthless in holding ourselves, each other, accountable to those things. I think that's always been an overwhelming strength of Dave's. And I see it in Wes and I see it in Tony. Of course, they all have different skill sets and styles and all those types of things. But I see that just like a real singular focus in their programs. And that just becomes this rising tide lifts all boats scenario. So, yeah, I hadn't thought about that, Matt, but it's really cool to see now that you mention it.
As you were saying that, I thought about this quote that Tim Corbin gave on his pregame radio show on Friday. He said about Van Horn, he said, think about all the games you've had against Arkansas, and I've never felt like an Arkansas game was non-competitive through the years, ever. And then he went on to say, it's just consistency, and Dave is consistent as a person. I think his teams tend to kind of mirror him. So I feel like that kind of pairs well with what you were saying there, Mike. I want to get you out of here on this. So 8 of the top 10 in the D1 baseball poll this morning are SEC teams, and you talked about how the SEC really is just kind of pulling college baseball along. The other 2 in the top 10 are Florida State and Clemson. Are these the 2 best teams you think outside the SEC that have got a chance to win a title this year?
I think so. Yeah, like Florida State and Clemson seem really, really good. Florida State's got a really hellacious rotation, and I think Link Jarrett, their head coach, does as good a job with hitters and position player groups as anybody. And I do think the ACC, like for the SEC to remain dominant, they're going to have to hold off the ACC because that's a league that's very ascending, right? Like they just keep getting better. They keep wanting to trade punches with the SEC. I think there are other good teams. Like I think both Oregon schools are excellent. UC Irvine's having an awesome year. I think the Big 12 really improved in conference realignment, and I think the Big 10 really improved in conference realignment. So, our national championship is decided via a tournament, so anything can happen in tournament play. But yes, like at the top of the list for me would be Clemson and Florida State. I think they're very complete teams. Clemson is looking at being a top 8 national seed for the 3rd straight year if they continue on this trajectory. And, that doesn't happen by accident. And they've run into, kind of underseeded SEC teams each of the last 2 years. Florida State traded punches with Tennessee and Omaha last year. We all watched that. So I would agree, Matt. I think those are the 2 teams. But I think there's more than 2. I think it's I think the SEC, that's not the only league improving. Their resurgence in college baseball has lifted a lot of us up. So it's, I can't wait to see it play out. It's going to be a blast.
Mike, it's always great talking to you. Hopefully we see you at Baum later this year, or maybe Hoover or Omaha.
The way the Hogs are playing, boys, I'll see you somewhere. I know that. Can't wait.
That sounds good. Mike, appreciate you being here.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, Mike Rooney of ESPN and D1Baseball.com. Always great to talk to Mike this morning, taking time for us on his drive up to Phoenix today. When we come back, Bubba and I will continue talking Razorback baseball, but first, a word from our sponsors.
At Kendall King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kendall King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kendall King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
Hey, welcome back. One day you can get the latest breaking news on all Razorback sports at wholehogsports.com. Most in-depth source for all Arkansas sports analysis, latest in recruiting, and unique stories on all your favorite teams, even though Bubba doesn't read his. Subscribe today at wholehogsports.com. You look around the SEC right now, and we heard Mike talk about there's tiers. There's Arkansas and Georgia and Tennessee. SEC standings through 3 weeks. Those 3 teams are 8-1, and then Texas is 8-1. And then there's kind of a little bit of a gap, and then there's a real big gap between, say, the middle teams and the bottom 5. There are 5 teams in the SEC right now that are 1-8 or worse. Worst being Missouri, 0-9, who's coming into Baum this weekend.
It's crazy to think. Like I look at a team like Florida, all the talent they have. They're 1-8. I mean, that's crazy to me. And I don't know that I remember this many sweeps. Do you remember this many sweeps in the SEC? And we just talked about it earlier, how hard it is to get an SEC sweep. Now, there's certain teams that tend to get swept more than others, but I mean, there's some good teams out there getting swept, and it's just crazy to me.
Well, there were 3 sweeps this weekend. Well, there were 4 sweeps this weekend, I should say, but 3 of them by this upper tier on the road: Arkansas at Vanderbilt, Tennessee at South Carolina, and Texas at Missouri. Even though, as I've said a number of times, Missouri, SEC ballpark, they don't really match. But, I mean, it's again, and I guess that's what's creating this big gap between these teams at the top and the teams at the bottom. LSU, I guess, could be considered in that top tier too. They're 7-2 in the league. But down here at the bottom, you got Florida 1-8, like you mentioned. A&M is 1-8. Mississippi State is 1-8. That's got to have the locals, upset there in Starkville. South Carolina 1-8, and Missouri, like I said, 0-9. It's hard to really, I guess, maybe fathom what's going on in the SEC right now. And I know it's only 3 weeks, but at least it's a weird start to the conference season.
Yeah, I like the way Dave always talks about it. There's 30 games, and you better get your wins while you can, because things can change in a hurry in the league. You can go out and have one bad weekend and change a lot of things, and our schedule definitely does not get any easier as we get towards the back end of our schedule. So, man, we got to get those wins when you can.
Have you seen what Ole Miss is doing? They barely lost since Arkansas left there. They're 5-1. The only loss being, I think they had a late inning slip up against Florida the other day.
Yeah.
And that was Florida's only SEC win. I was looking at the RPI this morning. Arkansas's got the number 1 RPI in the country, and I think it's in large part to winning on the road and Ole Miss doing what the Rebels are doing because they've got a top 10 RBI too.
Yeah, I mean, they're a good team. Hey, you look at like a South Carolina team, they're going to scuffle this year, Matt, and I feel bad for Paul Marinari, but they just don't have the talent. But you could look at Ole Miss and tell they're a good team.
So offensively for Arkansas, I look at these numbers every Monday. They're top 10 in just about everything. And, going into that series, Vanderbilt had a 188 opposing batting average. I think it was like a 3.63, 3.73 team ERA. Their whip was really good, one of the best whips in the country of 110. Didn't seem to matter. I mean, Arkansas, 9 hits, 9 walks in game 1. They got their hits. Again, it wasn't maybe as gaudy as some of the numbers they had earlier in the season, but I think if you take into consideration the type of pitching that they were going against, it said a lot about Arkansas offensively.
Yeah, when I looked at that, I knew we'd be able to hold their offense in check with our staff. I didn't expect us to go in there and outscore them, 22-7. I really didn't. But it's a testament to the lineup, and it's been a while since I've looked at a lineup and seen a lineup this deep. I mean, I'm telling you, having Ryder, Souza, and Justin Thomas at the bottom of the lineup, those 3 guys, they're not only, and I heard Dave talk about it, and he's, we've talked about it before. They're not just really good 7, 8, 9 hitters. They're all 3 super athletic. They're fast. They can handle a bat. They can bunt. They can all hit home runs. I mean, they can hurt you in so many ways. And I don't know a lot of SEC teams that have 3 guys that good at the bottom of the lineup.
Okay, I want to mention the Caboose gang, by the way, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about them yesterday. This weekend at Vanderbilt, again, the numbers weren't as great as they were against South Carolina, but 7 for 33, 6 walks, I think 6 RBI between the 3 of them. They all had an extra base hit, and they all had a timely hit. Like Thomas had, the go-ahead home run. Now, I know it wasn't a game winner, but he had a go-ahead home run that answered a big Vanderbilt inning, or an inning where Vanderbilt scored. Souza had the big 2-run hit yesterday. Helfrich had the triple that got him off to a good start on Friday night in the 3rd inning. And so, yeah, I mean, that group, I don't know that, you don't ever want to expect them to hit 300. I mean, they're in the 7, 8, 9 spots in the order for a reason. But if they can give you just a little bit of production each weekend, that's a big deal. And this is 2 weekends in a row where it's 15 RBI over 2 SEC weekends. That's not bad from your 7, 8, 9.
I mean, you look at these 3 guys, the Caboose gang, and you could take in a lot of lineups, those guys would be hitting in the middle of the lineup. I mean, Justin Thomas could easily be our leadoff guy if Davlin wasn't doing so well. Mm-hmm. But he's a perfect guy in a DVH lineup. He loves having that 9-hole guy that's basically a Justin Thomas type player. And it's tough. If you're a pitcher trying to maneuver this lineup, it's not easy. There's no breaks in it. There really isn't. You can't relax.
I want to mention some stats here from Corey Stewart, Stu Hog, on YouTube. You ever watch Stu Hog's highlights on YouTube?
No,
okay.
Not.
Well, I do. Sorry, Corey, for Bubba insulting you like that. But no, Corey, he does a great job, and he put some stats out the other day, and I thought these were interesting. A couple. Now, this was before Sunday's game, so this is not necessarily current right now. But he said he looked at under Van Horn. the number of players batting at least 345 through 28 games. This is where I'm going to get into some numbers. Just hang on tight. Arkansas's got 6 this year. 6 players hitting 345 or better through Saturday's game. A lot of years they didn't have any under Van Horn through 28 games. A lot of years they had 1. The most they ever had was 23 when Josenberger and Jared Wagner and Borfin and that group was hitting well. They had 4 through 28 games that year. They've had a few years where they had 3. But anyway, I mean, again, you talk about the depth and the quality of the lineup. 6 players, 345 or better through 28 games. That tells you something.
That's pretty impressive. I'll start watching your guy.
Yeah, you need to.
Yeah.
It's Stu Hogg on YouTube.
Yeah, text that to me.
now, here's another one that he said. The number of players with 34 or more RBI through 28 games. You ready for this?
Yes.
Prior to this year, in the Van Horn era, only 6 players had 34 or more RBI through 28 games. They got 3 this year. So 6 players in Dave's first 22 years had 34-plus RBI through 28 games. They've got 3 right now, Iredell and the Eloy brothers.
It's pretty impressive. That's a lot of numbers for this early in the morning, but it's impressive. But, the RBIs, for me, RBIs ought to be a team stat because you're not getting RBIs without dudes getting on base. We got a lot of dudes getting on base, and they're finding a way to get on base, walk, base hit, hit by pitch, whatever. They're finding ways, or even an error, just putting pressure on the defense. You look at the ball Vejeva hit yesterday. To the second baseman, he booted it. That ball was smoked the other way. I mean, we hit balls hard, good things happen.
I saw a stat the other day that against South Carolina, they put 42 balls in play at 95 miles an hour or more exit velocity. Yeah. And it's like we see 105, 110, 111. Cahillo had one at 117 this year. And I think we kind of look at 95 like, that's still a really hard hit baseball, and they had 42 of them against South Carolina.
Now I did see that. I saw that you're talking about. You referenced. So the threshold for a hard hit ball is 95, and this team, it's crazy how many balls. I mean, I love having TrackMan in the booth because you can chart that, and it's incredible. I call it barrel awareness. Just how many balls they barrel up in the course of a game or a series.
You'll like Tim Corbin for this. He advocated on his pregame radio show this week for TrackMan to have the strike zone, that the coaches would have access to the strike zone.
Good for him, because that's idiotic to take that away. I
think what he said was like, this is where, I think his words were like, this is where we're going as a society anyway, is more analytic-based whatever. And it's like, why not have the strike zone where – hey, if you run your iPad out there and you show the umpire that he missed a strike, okay, let's suspend that coach for 5-10 games.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever going to make that mistake again. But I think what he was saying was like it helps us coach in the dugout where we can see where the pitches are actually landing.
I mean, it's just common sense, isn't it? I mean, where's common sense right now in the SEC? I mean, I think it's a stupid rule. We're the only conference doing it. Postseason, we'll have it back. We'll have the strike zone back in postseason. So I don't know, Matt. There's things like that just annoy me because I just feel like, I'm a common sense person. I feel like it just doesn't make sense to me. But and he's right. If DVH comes out of the dugout and shows the iPad to the umpire, he's going to get tossed.
In the heat of the moment, if you were coaching and you had the iPad like that, would you do it?
Ooh, I don't know.
There's a great story.
I have pulled the. I've gotten my phone out before, and I've been having a discussion with an umpire about a rule, and he was wrong, and so I've pulled my phone out and showed him the rule, and he wasn't happy about that.
Well, you've heard about Norm doing this. Were you there when Norm did this?
What's that?
I can't remember. He was telling me this story one time. But anyway, I think they were up at Wichita, and umpire did something, and Norm had his rule book in his pocket. And he said he was trying to pull the rule book out, and it got stuck in his pocket. He's like jerking at it, and he can't get it out. And he finally gets out. He gets ejected, as part of this whole ordeal. But he had his rule book, and he wanted to turn to the rule book and show the umpire where he had misapplied some sort of rule.
Yeah, that was probably before cell phones. But yeah,
You cannot fit a baseball rule book in your pocket anymore.
Yeah.
That thing it's like one of those old phone books.
yeah, it's crazy. But kudos to Tim Corbin for saying that. I think if you ask every coach in the SEC, they're all going to say the same thing. They think it's silly not to have it.
That was one of the very few Corbin sound bites I think that you could use this week. It was mostly just 1 and 2 word answers.
But who's going to be the first
He was
team
not happy.
to circumvent that and go around it and figure out a way to get a strike zone?
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, you're right. They're probably doing it right now.
All right. Going back to offense, Dave Van Horn, I asked him yesterday about the length and the strength of the lineup and how it's improved in the last couple of weeks, and this is what he had to say.
I just feel like that at that time of year, guys are starting to heat up, seeing a lot of pitches, seeing a lot of sliders and off-speed stuff, and you just get, you get a little more comfortable. You kind of see it and react, and I don't know. It's just a great job by the offense. I think they're all just motivating each other.
So Dave Van Horn, after the win over Vanderbilt yesterday, I wanted to talk about this because we touched on it at the very top of the show, this strategy to, and I hate to say throw a game on Tuesday because that's not what they did. They weren't trying to throw a game. It's just that they weren't shooting all their bullets to try to win it. And it paid off for them. I mean, we talked about this the other day. If they lose the series at Vanderbilt, everybody's going to say, well, it started against Missouri State. And now when you go and you sweep Vanderbilt for the first time in 31 years on their home field, everybody kind of looks back at that Missouri State game and says, maybe they had the right thought process. It wasn't that they didn't pitch all of the pitchers who they pitched against Vanderbilt. Parker Coyle wasn't available this weekend, so I think that affected some things that they did in the bullpen. Bybee threw 33 pitches against Missouri State. Dylan Carter threw 20. But I think probably what happened during the midweek was you resist that urge to let them keep going if they're pitching well. Bybee wasn't pitching well against Missouri State. Dylan Carter was. But you resist that urge to keep them going and keep them fresh for the weekend. You don't throw Aiden Jimenez on a Tuesday night. You don't throw Carson Wiggins, who I'm sure they could have gone and closed out that game against Missouri State with a 5-run lead. I feel like what happened against Vanderbilt validated, to a certain extent, the decision making that they'd made earlier in the week.
I think so, and you already we already talked about it, but we said that if you go in and win the series, we're going to forget about Tuesday, and I think that's what happened. But that just goes to show you how Dave understands. I mean, he's playing checkers. A lot of people are playing, or he's playing chess. A lot of people are playing checkers. He just knows how to get his team ready for the weekend. I think Carson Wiggins is the guy they would like to have brought in on Tuesday to close that out. There's no need to, though.
And Wiggins, I want to say this too. I didn't think he threw bad the other day. He got squeezed on a 3-2 pitch that gave them a base runner that eventually scores against him. But he put out the fire in the 6th inning of that game. If he doesn't get squeezed, maybe he gets a scoreless 7th inning too. I thought maybe the wild pitch was about the only thing that you could say, hey, that went wrong for him.
Yeah, but he's going to let one of those go every once in a while. It's going to happen. But I agree. I think he got squeezed. I think if a couple of those pitches are called strikes, it's a totally different outcome. But I love the fact that they had confidence to put him in that situation. I think that shows him a lot, that they believe in him and they trust him.
That's 2 weeks in a row where Arkansas's bullpen pitched really well against an SEC team. You take away the Ole Miss stats, and I know they count, but you take away the Ole Miss stats, and this team's been really good over the last few weeks in the bullpen. All right, going back to the midweek, I asked Dave yesterday after the game, I said, was there a moment in your career where you kind of had to learn the hard way about what to do with your midweek pitching? And this is what he had to say.
You guys have heard me say it over the last few years. Said it the other day. Sometimes you got to lose one to win one. We just talked about it on a little bus ride over here to our auxiliary locker room where we're taking a shower. As you can hear all the noise. That as much as we hated to lose that game on Tuesday, we might have probably won the game today. Maybe not yesterday, maybe not Friday, but if we bring Bybee in, he's probably not as good as he was today, and we might lose. Or Carter, the other day, and we had him up again. So, yeah, I've gotten greedy, so to speak, and won a game on Tuesday and maybe another one on Wednesday, and then Friday goes okay, but you use a guy or two and you don't have any guys left that you really want to go to for Saturday, and it may cost you that game and Sunday. So as much as, we have great fans, they just got to understand sometimes when you play 4 and 5 games a week, we just don't have enough guys sometimes. Just depending on how it goes. We got to take care of their arms and keep an eye on pitch counts, and body language will tell us a lot, and technology will tell us a lot about if a guy needs a break.
Thoughts?
No, I like it. I mean, it's all about getting 27 outs.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think he's a genius when it comes to that. And I bet you he probably, I think he's right. There's been a few times he's gone after a game on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and it came back and haunted him. And, I don't know. I think he does a great job of it, and it showed this weekend. And, do you really even remember the Tuesday game now?
I do.
I've kind of watched it from my brain.
But it feels like it was longer ago than 6 days. Are you doing math over there?
Yeah, I was getting ready to add something up. For some reason, I couldn't figure out 27 times 3.
81.
It's 81, yeah. It came to me. I never typed it in, though. It finally came to me. But I couldn't. I was listening to Dave and trying to add at the same time. But ultimately, it's about how am I going to get out 81 outs on a weekend?
They had to get 84 this week.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's even harder. But you're right. I mean, you just one extra inning can affect things tremendously when it comes to a weekend of baseball.
All right, so Arkansas is at Dickey-Stevens Park tomorrow night, playing Grambling State. I don't think Arkansas has ever taken a lineup down there quite like this. Or maybe the only lineup I can think of was 2010 when they had Andy Wilkins, Zach Cox, Brett Eibner, that group. They were pretty offensive-minded. Van Horn calls Dickey-Stevens a graveyard, and he doesn't mean that in a negative way. It's just that, with the way the wind blows there, that it's, we've seen it a number of times when Arkansas goes down there. It's a lot of low-scoring games, even against teams that you feel like they ought to be hitting well against.
Before I answer that, I can't believe you called me out on the calculator.
I just wanted to know what you were doing.
Yeah, I was so struggling. It's hard to listen to DVH.
I thought you had something very insightful you were going to tell us that you were adding up.
I was just adding up 27 outs times 3. It was a rough weekend, Matt.
Are you more upset with me for calling you out on the calculator or the baseballs that you steal before the games?
Yeah, the calculator thing, kind of, because the baseball thing, that's just giving it to the little kids. So, just giving a little back.
What were we talking about?
Something about Tuesday night.
Dickey-Stevens.
Yeah.
Graveyard.
Okay, so it can kind of be an equalizer. You look at this team, but the difference in this team is where in the past I feel like we've been more of a team that hit a lot of fly balls, carry out of the yard. That doesn't play well at Dickey-Stevens, where this team here, we can beat you in multiple ways. So I don't think it's going to be an issue there, but that can kind of be a great equalizer if you're playing a team. If you're a power hitting team, you're playing a team that's not a power hitting team. You put them in a giant field, anything can happen.
Arkansas run ruled Grambling when they played them about a month and a half ago back at Baum. Really only about a month ago. February 25th was the day. 14-3 in 7 innings. It's that team that, again, you go from facing really elite arms to facing pitchers that you're only going to see on a Tuesday night a couple of times a year, or a caliber that type.
Yeah, I think Grambling at Dickey-Stevens Park's it's tough because you think about it. We get on a bus, we travel down. Guys aren't used to doing that. You get off the bus, you do your, there's a ton of fans there. You sign autographs. You baseball players are creatures of habit, Matt. You know that, and so that's a different thing. You don't do that. That's the only time in the year that you do that is get off a bus after 3 hours and play a ball game, and it can be a change for guys. There's a lot going on down there. I mean, it's a great environment. It's an awesome environment. The fans down there are awesome every year. And then you adjust to the pitching on top of all that. So there's a lot going on. So we tend to not play real well at Dickey-Stevens Park.
I feel like they let too many people in the game down there, quite honestly. And I don't mean this negatively. It's just the concourses are totally packed. And I don't know, I feel bad for some of the people who maybe this is their only Razorback baseball experience, and then they stand in line at the concession for an hour, and they've missed 3 or 4 innings. And but yeah, I mean it's a neat experience. but it's very unique. They also need more seating in their press box.
Oh,
Not as many people go to cover the Travelers. Yeah. That's always my battle is going down there. It's like, where are you going to sit? I'm gonna ask Phil if I can sit in the booth with him. I think tomorrow night.
Yeah, they're pretty small too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I went a couple of years ago. I'm not going tomorrow, but I went a couple of years ago. But boy, it was so much fun. Got a chance to talk to Sully, do a little interview with him, and then just the fans and watching how excited the fans get to see the Razorbacks. I think is awesome.
The first time Arkansas played down there was 2010 against Louisiana Tech. I was there, and I mean the fans were I don't know, hundreds deep at the gate.
Yeah,
like before the gates open. They're literally shaking the gates to get in, and I mean it was a really neat experience that night. I don't know if has it tempered down at all or not since that happened, but I don't know. There's all this talk about should Arkansas play at War Memorial Stadium anymore for football? It's a totally different thing for baseball. I mean, you got 34, 35 home games at Baum. And one game down at Little Rock's not going to be the end of the world, and it's a neat experience again for those people to be able to catch a Tuesday night Razorback baseball game in person.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's tough for the guys, but I think once they get there and they get out on the field,
energized.
I think that crowd energizes them because they're loud. They're in the game. I just think it's a fun environment. If I wish we'd have done that back in the day. I would love to have played down there back in the day.
Norm used to take teams down there before you played to play the Travelers at Ray Winder. But I don't think the Razorbacks ever played any regular season games down there. I don't think. They may have, but I don't. And if they did, it was very rare that they'd play regular season games down there the way that they do at Dickey Stevens. That game tomorrow night is going to be at 6 o'clock, and it's going to be on the SEC Network Plus. I think it's just going to be the Travelers in-house video that they use, and I'm not sure exactly who's going to be announcing it, but there will be a video feed. It'll just be a little bit different than some of the usual SEC Network Plus broadcasts. Bubba, appreciate you being in here.
Enjoyed it. Go Hogs.
We'll see you Thursday to preview Missouri.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, Bubba Carpenter. Appreciate Bubba being here with us. You can read our latest baseball content with Bubba at wholehogsports.com. We hope we see you there on our website, and we'll be back tomorrow with another podcast. Have a great day, everybody.